Spent $6,000 on fixed price mode leads. I ended up making $82,000 in cash as a result of that $6,000 investment.
Matt, nice to see you. How's it going?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
So do you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself, your business? How did you start investing, and how did you get to iSpeedToLead?
I've been a real estate investor for about 20 years. I did my first deal 20 years ago just by accident, as far as figuring out what wholesaling was and implementing that in my business. Then over the next few years, I did wholesaling kind of part-time in addition to my regular day job in technology sales at the time. But then about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, I started seeing I was making quite a bit more in my part-time gig wholesaling than I was in my day job. And I went full-time in my wholesaling business. I have been doing that ever since. I kind of switched out. I was doing mostly fix and flips at the very beginning of my career, typically, 6 or 8 a year. And I eventually segued out into full-time wholesaling over the last 3.5 years.
Okay, awesome. So sounds like you have a lot of experience. So do you mind sharing a little bit more? How did you get leads? What using multiple sources? And on another note, which areas do you target?
Yeah, I've been in wholesaling for so long. I've tried just about everything, I would say. Direct mail was probably one of the first things. Back in the day when I first started, direct mail could be pretty effective. But then I went over to cold calling probably about 6 years ago, along with texting. Saw some pretty good results from texting. Cold calling did okay as well too. Then the texting, as you know, went away in the last year or two with all the regulations. So switched over to doing more cold calling overall. Had kind of hit or miss success with that, as you can imagine. Depends on the list that you pull and whether people pick up based on seeing spam risk come across their line or that type of thing. So out of desperation, towards the end of last year, my business in November and December, as far as lead flow, had pretty much ground to a halt. I was getting leads, but they just weren't quality, and I was finding I was spending more on my cold callers than I should. Kind of a desperate act as I finally go, okay, well, I'm going to go out and see what's available as far as paid for leads. Found you guys through RJ Bates, talking about your site, and gave it a shot and had some pretty significant results in January as a result of that.
Okay, sounds good. So let's talk a little bit more about the initial story. What challenges did you face like last year that almost ended up being like a shut down business or something?
I was finding from cold calling in particular, it was taking between 80 and 120 leads to get one contract. My cold callers, I had like 4 at one time. They were, giving me maybe 100 to 150 leads per month. And if I was lucky, I got 2 deals a month out of it and kind of, defeated the averages and everything. And of course, not all the time with those deals closed. So it was just inconsistent lead flow coming in, and the motivation level wasn't always there. A lead is a very, very general term, especially when cold calling. It's basically just somebody raising their hand and saying, yeah, I'll consider an offer. That type of lead versus the lead that you all offer through your, fixed price mode program, where I can actually determine the motivation factors that I'd like to see, that made a huge difference in my business.
Got it. And just for me to confirm, so for people who are watching us, so did you hire cold callers yourself, or did you use the separate agency for that? Like what was the story there?
Yeah, I did hire cold callers myself, had them trained myself. They were, they're effective on the phone. They did their job well, but again, they can't control the motivation factors. It was often very dependent on the data that I gave them. So we were doing mostly city code violation list, and then of course, like tax delinquent lists for the counties and things like that. I tried to stay away from the more traditional list like high equity, or I would do some absentee landlord lists, those types of things. But I think those lists get hit pretty hard. And it's only when you start stacking motivation factors that you truly start to see a breakout of the quality of leads that you get.
You found us. You started first with the coupon club leads, if that's my understanding, you tried some of those, you decided to switch to fixed price mode. Did you have any hesitation like, hey, I need to pay like way more than I used to pay? And what would you say was the biggest difference when you switched to fixed price mode?
Fixed price mode honestly did scare me before. With cold calling and texting. I was probably spending $3,000 a month on paying my cold callers and paying for the texting service and the list and the skip tracing and that kind of thing. I was making probably $20,000 to $30,000 a month. So not a bad return on that stuff when the lead flow was coming consistently, but it could be very inconsistent. With y'all, I was paying substantially more for the motivated seller leads that I was getting in the fixed price mode. But I knew because of the stacking of motivation factors that I was looking for, that I was getting a much higher quality of lead. So when I sat down and actually rationalized that on paper, what I'm getting per lead, which, sometimes could cost several $100s versus for the same amount of money producing a lot of leads that have very little motivation factor, it made sense to go the direct, the fixed price mode.
Let's talk a little more about results. So you started using fixed price mode. How much did you spend total with us? I think you mentioned 6,000, but total spent 6,000. What's the result we got so far?
Yeah, I was definitely, as I told you earlier, I was definitely in desperation mode towards the end of last year. My wife was getting a little upset about the returns that we were seeing in the other lead channels that we were working. So I decided I'm going to pull the trigger and I got to find out if this works or not. So I spent $6,000 on fixed price mode leads. That got me, 20 plus leads total to work with the stacked motivation factors that I was looking for. I got 3 deals under contract. One of those deals actually fell through, but the other 2 did convert. They were in the desired markets that I wanted with all the other motivation factors that I wanted. And I ended up making or closing $82,000 in cash as a result of that $6,000 investment. I was pretty happy. That was a nice ROI.
Did you wholesale them? Did you flip them? Like, what was the?
I just wholesaled them. That's all I did. Yeah.
Okay.
The entire cycle for each one was probably 30 days from beginning to end. So pretty phenomenal cash conversion cycle and return on investment overall.
And where were they? Like, was it Dallas? Was it?
They were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
On another note, and we don't need names, but you mentioned to me that you use some other pay-per lead providers. How did that go? Or you probably still use? I'm not sure what's the story, but can you share a bit more? And what's the primary issues?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna name them per se, but I think everybody knows the usual suspects. There's 3 or 4 others out there that are pretty predominant for real estate investors. So, the main thing that I found from them is they may have been a little cheaper per lead, but their forms that they're using to bring in inbound leads are obviously very wide open, very general. And as a result, I'm getting leads that just had very little motivation overall. When I kind of sit down and I look at, okay, well, I'm paying more per lead through iSpeedToLead in the fixed price mode than I am through these other services. These other services, the majority of their stuff is worthless or spam or returns or that type of thing. It makes sense all day long to buy through the iSpeedToLead.
And the thing that you mentioned about form, why did you feel this way? Like, did homeowners tell you something, or like, what's the difference when you're calling? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I would say the main feedback, actually right before we jumped on this Zoom, I was talking to a rep from this other company. My feedback to him was most of these people I'm talking to just think they're requesting like valuation on their home. I asked them specifically, I said, I want to see the forms that you're actually advertising on Facebook with to see what you're producing your quote unquote leads with, because they were so general. Literally, I quoted him, I think about 38% of my leads, I was looking at them last night, that came in from that other service. People that were saying, oh, the form just conveyed to me that I was going to get, kind of an idea of market value of what my house is worth. I mean, that's not a lead to me.
I got it. Appreciate you sharing that. And how much did you spend total with them?
$4,000 so far. Still not a converted deal through them.
Okay,
Through that particular service. And the other couple that I've worked with in the past probably spent another 7 or 8,000 between them and got one converted deal between probably 50 or 60 leads that I got from them. So the ROI comparatively is just not there between their services and what you guys offer.
And let's go back to fixed price mode. So you mentioned you like selecting motivations, but on fixed price mode there are way more parameters. Do you use any others? Like, can you tell us what's the thought process when you first like put all the parameters that you wanted on the lead? Like,
yeah, I mean it's based on, you know, how long the person's owned the home, what's repairs or guesstimates on remodeling or repairs is needed for the home. It's based on, you know, the particular marketplace that I can select, you know, whether it's a specific county or a specific state, depending on how wide or how narrow I want to go. Factors like those that kind of stack upon them, which based on my past experience in my business, I know those are factors that will produce a motivated seller that I can talk to. And
you have so much experience. So what would you say top 3 advice you would give to people that start? Like, if you like anything, just first thing on top of your mind based on your experience.
Yeah, I would say I was late to the game to really sitting down and analyzing my business and return on investment. I've been more of a shoot from the hip kind of guy over the years, and gut feeling and that type of thing. And you really need to track your investment per lead channel and see what the results are coming back. I mean, that seems so basic to most people that are probably more analytical or logical based than me. But for me, I was shoot from the hip. So I would say on a weekly basis, take a look at your lead channels and look at the return on investment that you're seeing is probably the biggest thing. And then whichever channel is producing the most, start focusing, you know, 60, 70, 80% of your money towards that channel. Maybe you still want to continue other channels like texting or cold calling or whatever, but direct the majority over there. Again, you know, I can't state enough, you all's leads were quite a bit more expensive than others. But when I take a look at the quality that I get versus the other providers, your leads are the best value overall. It's not just about cost up front. It's about the return on investment that you'll see on the other side.
Oh, how big is your team right now? Like, what's the structure? So you still get leads from PPL? Do you still call? Like, how does the team look?
Yeah, because of my experience with you all, actually, I got rid of my cold calling team. I had scaled down from 4 cold callers down to 2 towards the end of last year. And then finally, when I saw the, you know, great return that I was getting off the, you know, fixed cost leads from you guys, I let my cold calling team go. So now I just have one VA that helps me send out text and do some skip tracing and pull lists. I'm a much more leaner organization now, including myself, 6 people at one time. But it's not always all about the number of people that you have working for you. It's about the results that you get. And by being a leaner organization and dedicating my marketing spend, quite a bit of it to you guys, I'm seeing a lot better results.
It's pretty common for me to hear like people who really scaled down and they became happier too. So because they don't need to manage so many people. There are also people that just like conversations with homeowners and like making things done, getting things done, right? So that's and expenses. It's just expenses. You have 5 people, it's probably at least 1,000 a month per each, plus extra things. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, to your point, you know, I when I had cold callers, again, I'd produce anywhere from 60, 80 up to 120 or 140 leads per month. So I was the one that was calling most of those and talking to them, but most of them weren't quality or, you know, conversations. And now I'm calling quite a bit fewer, you know, sellers, but I'm having much better results. My stress level is down. The time spent on managing other people is down. So overall, for me, it's a higher quality of life.
Do you stick to just wholesale as a strategy? Do you do like any innovation? You still try to, you know, flip, or you just stick to wholesaling and that's it? Like any creative finance?
I I do everything except for fix and flip now. I found out after years of doing fix and flip that you can spend months, one little thing goes wrong, and all of a sudden your budget's out of whack, and where you thought you might make 40 or 50K, all of a sudden you're breaking even kind of thing. So I've focused all my time on just putting houses under contract. Majority of my business, probably 85-90% is wholesaling, but I do subject twos. I do novations as well every now and then. It's been a few years since I've done fix and flip. I just think I get a much better return on investment for the work I put in by doing transactional type business rather than being out on the street talking to contractors, hiring people to fix up a home and hoping 3 or 4 months later that the market hasn't turned and I'm able to sell that house before my hard money loan comes due. That's been my approach for the last 3 years or so.
Last question about iSpeedToLead, and I'll let you go. I know you have a tight schedule. Refunds. So you put leads based on your parameters. If anything happened wrong, did you interact with our support team? How did that go so far?
Yeah, I think your support team is very professional. The only feedback I give, I wish that the determination of whether a refund is due or not was a little bit quicker. I understand that the support team, of course, from your side running a business, that you're needing to figure out if the refund is truly merited and reach out to the seller to confirm, the facts as stated by the buyer of the lead. But overall, I think the professionalism of the team is very good. I think they're pretty supportive when the leads come in that are spam or risk, or as an example, like I spoke to somebody the other night from another lead that I got, that the guy was drunk at 2 a.m. and just filled out the form for the hell of it, kind of thing. So, if I ever get that kind of lead from you guys, I'm going to get a refund. I know that you're fair about that.
Yeah, so it's just the process about clarification, some things. So I hope at least the things that were kind of obvious that went through. But we probably give the most refunds, and our refund team, support team, is probably the biggest out there. Maybe like even bigger than all PPLs combined out there, which is good and bad.
Yeah, no, I think it helps your brand overall because, of course, if I were in your business and I were bringing in the leads, I would realize there's only a certain amount of motivation factors that I can control. I get that. I understand it. You're fair in the way you respond to refunding. And as a result, I think that makes a much more loyal customer overall. It's not like churn and burn, like get somebody in for 2 months to, buy some leads, nothing comes out of it. They feel like they made a bad investment and then they take off for some other place.
And we need you guys to ask for refunds because personally, I think it's ability to have the safety is what a big differentiator, let's say, versus, running your own ads or even cold calling. I mean, you still got to pay hourly rate no matter what, no safety. Next month, you still got to, pay the bills. So here, bad lead, especially with fixed price mode, put the parameters, anything bad, you just get it back. Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And of course, I'm not expecting every lead to be fantastic. Things are going to slip through, and that's why you got to look at your lead conversion rate and just see if you're kind of in there in guidelines with industry standards. How many leads does it take to get a contract and so on.
No, it's been a nice story. Excited that you have such a tremendous ROI. I look forward for you to close even more deals with us. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to get some advice? Because it sounds like you know a lot, and you might not have a lot of time to give advice to other people, but what's the best ways to reach out to you?
I would say best way is I don't really do Facebook or social media too much per se. I'm probably too old school. I need to do more of that. My email is Matt, M-A-T-T, and then at thegippergroup.com. Gipper is spelled Gipper, like win one for the Gipper. Matt at thegippergroup.com. They can reach me that way.
And we're gonna put this in description, guys. So if you need any suggestions, reach out to Matt, do some GVs. Matt, it was really nice to see you. We're looking forward to close more deals, and thank you for this interview.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Yuri.
Take care.
Okay, thank you.